Good afternoon. This is Batavia Mayor Jeff Schielke reporting to you on Friday, May 14th, 2021. And we've got somewhat of a day of complexion here in Batavia, given the fact that we're subject to all kinds of statements and announcements coming out of the state of Illinois and the federal government as to what should be our policy and regarding the pandemic. And a lot of people have told me they're no longer wearing their mask, and we are told that the state of Illinois has not officially yet said what to do, that we're waiting for a statement to be issued, and I kind of delayed going on the air here today to see if the state was going to issue anything. So far, it's just a shy of 2 o'clock and nothing's been said, but we're waiting for some further clarification from the governor's office as to what they mean by the whole mask situation and what you can and you cannot do. So I continue to carry mine with me in my pocket and put it on when I'm around other people, and so I would encourage everybody to do the same until we get some more definitive answers from the state of Illinois. That's kind of the big item of conversation around town at the moment, I'm hearing. And there's a lot of people that just can't wait for this to be over, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's been over a year that we've had to deal with this, and I'm proud with the numbers that we've kept the pandemic numbers in Batavia down significantly over other communities, and I'm very proud of that fact. But it was only done with the cooperation and support of some really good people, and I will tell you that we certainly have some angels in our midst here in the persons of living Batavia residents who went the extra mile to spread the word and get people registered for shots early on, and specifically helped a number of the senior citizen population who didn't have the technological skill to register themselves. And one of the great problems I find as the mayor is that there it continues to be on a variety of fronts, lack of understanding or ability in the technological world, specifically by the senior population. And so, we are certainly here at the city to try to help as much as we can. The police department deals with a lot of different senior-related issues on an ongoing basis, and specifically we have people trying to take advantage and try to encourage people to give them social security numbers and credit card numbers and all this other good stuff, with the idea that they think they then will go to work on their accounts and try to procure some redirection of funding or whatever. So please be careful in giving away any of your information to anybody. On another subject, we have just taken delivery of a whole new set of slow down Batavia signs for this coming summer that we're trying to get everybody, both in the cars and on the bicycles, to slow down. And specifically, I think we want to emphasize that we really request that the bicycle riding community really adhere to the laws that they are supposed to be, and one of them is they're supposed to be stopping for all the stop signs and stoplights. And that is a clear rule. There's no exception for that, and the bicycles riding around Batavia need to be doing that. And I would encourage everybody to do it, because we don't want to have a report here sometime down the road of some really bad bicycle accidents in Batavia because of people's failure to not want to stop for stop signs and stoplights. So you're seeing the bad side of me at the moment. Maybe it's the mood I'm in. But anyway, I just wanted to share that we are concerned about bicycle riding in Batavia, and specifically ask drivers of cars to slow down, because we are getting into the summer months when we'll have a lot of kids on the streets. There'll be some of the attractions which were closed last summer are going to be reopened this summer. And among the things that we are doing in the community at the moment is we're trying to do some heavy-duty road work. And you're probably familiar, Northern Illinois Gas Company's been tearing apart Island Avenue from one end to the other, installing a new gas line. And once that actual work is done, I'm told we're going to get a new street surface over it, so we'll be back to normal. But right now it's kind of a messy look. And then out on our southwest side project, Main Street is, I am told, will hopefully be resurfaced here in the next few weeks, along with finishing up Batavia Avenue between First Street and Elm Street. And so those are projects that are in the works and going forward. And I appreciate your understanding and cooperation as we get into that. We have, a lot of different stuff going on. And one of the great questions probably in town at the moment is what's going to be the story on the 4th of July? Well, I don't know for sure yet, but I will tell you as I sit here on Friday the 14th that it looks like We are hopefully going to be in a position to schedule the Batavia reoccurrence of the Batavia 4th of July fireworks display on 4th of July out at Engstrom Park. And we will be firing off there. We still could use some donations for helping to pay for the expenses of that, because as I've shared with you a number of times, we've never used taxpayer dollars to pay for that. That's all been donated money. And we had a good successful garage sale event, and we raised quite a bit of money. So we are hopefully going to be doing some stuff that will kind of accent that as we go forward. We expect that we'll have quite a crowd this year. People are kind of pent up, and the idea that they can come out and, if nothing else, just sit in their cars along Randall Road or Main Street or Batavia High School or Engstrom Park or whatever, that we think we'll have quite a crowd. And I've talked this morning with the Batavia Police Department, and they were saying that they're anticipating to do it. The Fireworks Committee is going to meet next Monday night, and then they're going to finally reach a plan of action. And then we'll be sharing that hopefully with the Batavia City Council, and I've already talked to the other governmental bodies that are around and involved, and everybody seems to be of a tune that, we need to do what we can do to kind of return things to normal, safely but slowly, obviously. So that being said, I find that one of the things that I've done here in the past that seems to bring a gleam to many people's eyes is to tell some story of Batavia's past history. So today I'd like to, because I'm talking about the fireworks, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Batavia Fireworks Show, which started in 1950, and it was fired every year through last year when we had to postpone it because of the pandemic, but we now have plans to resume it. So I guess we'll describe this coming show as kind of a double show, although it would probably be about the same length and the same amount. But we're going to try to hopefully bring it all back together and keep it as a long-standing community tradition. As I've told you before, it was started by the Batavia Rotary Club with the support of the Batavia Fire Chief Bud Richter and the members of the Batavia Fire Department, and for many years the firemen themselves did the actual firing of the fireworks. And then later, as things evolved, we ended up having to bring a private company in because we needed to add music and bands and other things to kind of spruce the thing up. And it was becoming, with the increasing volumes of business the Batavia Fire Department was under, it was difficult for them to commit resources and personnel to do it. So it's evolved, but I think it's evolved in the right direction, and I'm very pleased with it. But one story of old-time Batavia I guess I'd like to share as I end this is that one of the things that Chief Richter and the Rotary felt very strongly about is that we needed to open the show every year with an invocation. And Batavia was blessed going back to 1950 and the years before and the years after that we had some ministers in town that really rose to the occasion. And two that rose to the occasion, one was Monsignor William J. Donovan of Holy Cross Church. And Monsignor was really a fan of the fireworks, so I am told. He always thought it was a great exercise, and going back to the days when we fired it over on Illinois Avenue at the old athletic field, he thought it was just a great opportunity to bring together ecumenical community fellowship from every church in town, and everybody got together and shared in the delight of the day. And he would pray about that in his prayer that he would open up, and he would say, how good Batavia was, and the amount of patriotism that we had was overwhelming, and the amount of service, military service that was donated by men and women of Batavia in the great battles of our country certainly spoke for itself. So Monsignor Donovan was a big fan of the fireworks program, and I'm sure he's smiling down upon us today with the idea that we are going to resume it. The other person that had a role in that was the late Reverend Gilbert Johnstone, who was pastor for a number of years at the First Baptist Church in Batavia. And Reverend Johnstone was the first chaplain of the Batavia Fire Department. And in that role, he and Monsignor Donovan were very good friends. Their churches were only a block apart, one at Washington and Wilson, and the other at Van Buren and Wilson. And they would talk with great regularity, and the fire department chief, Bud Richter, who I knew very well, used to joke that the two of them had worked out a schedule that one year Monsignor would do it, and the next year Reverend Johnstone would do it. And so Reverend Johnstone felt very strongly about it for the same reasons that Monsignor Donovan did: the patriotism, the bringing together of the community, the ecumenical spirit. And so in a lot of respects, these gentlemen were years ahead in their thinking as to how things should be done and how things should be held in moving forward. And I know a number of citizens who still live in Batavia today who have extremely fond memories of both of these gentlemen. And the story I'd like to start to tell before we end is that Reverend Johnstone had a son, Bob, and Bob was a huge fan of Batavia sports, and specifically the basketball program. So the day that Gerald Ford, who would then assume the presidency in the early, I guess it would have been the early 1970s, announced that he was going to withdraw the U.S. forces from Vietnam and basically end the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, was, I believe, on a Saturday. And that night there was a basketball game to be played at Batavia High School. So Reverend Johnstone and his wife Helen and son Bob walked into the gym, and so I'm led to believe one of the officials from Batavia High School came over to Reverend Johnstone and said, "You know, we think given what's just happened today and the end of the Vietnam War and the strife and the disagreement and all the issues that have surrounded it over these many years, we think it would be nice to begin the basketball game tonight with a kind of an invocation of prayer about the end of the war and appreciation for the sacrifices that have been made and the hope that peace will surround our world as we move forward." And so Reverend Johnstone, being the guy he was, he said absolutely he would do it. And so when they began the game at the I'll call it the old gym, not on Batavia Avenue, but this was out at the, I'll call it the new gym, which is now the old gym out at the high school. Reverend Johnstone got to the speaker or the scorer's table, and he led immediately without any script. He gave a beautiful prayer about paying tribute to those who had served and get special blessings to those who had been injured or lost in the war, and specifically a prayer that this will signal a peaceful existence and cooperation of our world in the United States of America, and that he was thankful that the war and from the U.S. versions was over. And when he got through saying this prayer and he said his amen, they had the lights dimmed in the gym, and all of a sudden they flipped the lights on, and the whole gym went absolutely bonkers in celebration. There was screaming and hollering and applause, and people ran out in the field onto the floor, and Reverend Johnstone just stood there in kind of shock and awe, because as he later told myself and Fire Chief Richter at a coffee a couple of days later in the kitchen of the fire station, in all the years he had been a minister and given a prayer, he had never had an explosion of applause and acknowledgement like he got that night. And he didn't know really, he was still trying to ponder in his mind how it should be taken. And I told him, I said, I think it speaks well for the respect this community has for you, and you kind of unleashed the pent-up concerns and passions and fears that people had with your prayer, and that hopefully you were praying for greater days ahead, and that was what people wanted to acknowledge and celebrate. And he says, yeah, I think that hopefully is what I find in the prayer. But he says, prayers are answered in different ways, and you never know. But he says, I think I'll go to my grave wondering if I did the right thing that night with that prayer. And I said, oh, I think you definitely did the right thing. And Chief Richter was sitting there, and he said, I agree with Jeff. This is something that you should take some pride in, that you keyed an audience and got everybody that excited that night about the war coming to an end in a very thankful and appreciative manner. And so I end that because I know there's a number of people from old-time Batavia who still watch this, and I'm sure there's a few that will remember that moment when that all happened at Batavia High School. But in the context of Batavia history, I would suggest that that's a story that should be carried forth for future generations to read about and to analyze and appreciate what happened, because I think it spoke to a large volume about the compassion and the love and the feelings of sensitivity that have so enriched Batavia over the years. And so we are blessed to this very day to have very kind, caring, concerned people who many times, kind of hold their feelings, but there is a need for everybody to get it out and get it on, and and be nice about it and go forward and know that everybody is here to help each other. And so that's the spirit of Batavia that I want to end today. And I wish you well, and I look forward to talking to you next week on May 21st. Have a great week.